The Chosen episode 1 on Blu-ray. Let's do this thing. Already reviewed the pilot episode. Now we're going to review episode 1 and see what I think. I really like the opening scene here with this little girl and her dad. And we come to find out that this little girl is Mary Magdalene. And so we're learning about her and her dad and how her dad read her the scriptures, which would calm her down when she was afraid. And so that comes into play later. So I like that it kind of starts with this. As far as the Blu-ray quality goes, it's pretty rough for modern Blu-ray standards. It's watchable, but there's quite a bit of digital noise, and I really wish there could be some kind of an uncompressed version or like an HDR version, just because there's so many dark scenes that it would be nice to be able to see a better detail. But it's okay. I'd say the picture and sound is okay. You don't go to this set for the picture and sound, you go for the story. So we're going to go through it like it's a book club, and it's my turn to talk, so I'm just going to talk about some stuff I noticed. The opening credits are pretty cool. You've got the one fish kind of going against the stream, and then you see that more and more fishes turn against the stream and start going that way. So I like that because it's like symbolizing Christianity. It's symbolizing the small following growing and growing as more people get converted. So, and it's also symbolizing that if you are going against the stream, like that is what Christianity is like. You're a small amount of people going against the mainstream. So I like that. Just that little subtle messaging in this little cartoon during the credits. But there's something I really don't like in the credits. And it's probably the thing I don't like the very most about this series so far that I've discovered. And I'm going to do that part next. And no disrespect to the musician or whatever, but I just think this part is really ridiculous. Okay, it's the very end of the song. How she just like holds out her breath. It gets all breathy. Listen. Ugh. Like on the water, and then it's like I hate that. It's very distracting, and it's in front of every episode. Ugh. It's like it just gives me the willies up my spine because it's so uncomfortable. I always love seeing this guy in movies. His my two favorite quotes from this guy is one in Stargate, he says "Bonnie Way," and two in Mr. Deeds when he says, "I tried to make my own at home, but it just wasn't the same," referring to Wendy's Frosty. Actually, the Bonnie Way thing was also referring. It was from Stargate, and it's referring to a Fifth Avenue chocolate bar. So both of his favorite quotes of mine are referring to some kind of chocolate treat. You know what? This cannot be comfortable. Look at this. Look at those things flapping that guy in the face. I actually like this introduction to both Nicodemus, or as his wife calls him, Nico, and Quintus. And I like that as Quintus is talking, one, as he keeps turning his head and his little helmet flaps are like flapping all around. I really like that. But also, two, he does a very subtle, no-named reference to John the Baptist. Listen to this.
Your enemies, Sadducees, the Essenes, the Zealots, rogue creatures in the wilderness, raving about a coming Messiah, they're all fine for the people's protection.
I like that. It's good, like world building and kind of setting up the time period. And he just mentions this rogue preacher in the wilderness, and it's like, oh, he's talking about John the Baptist. Kind of cool little reference there. So this whole first episode actually has a really cool structure. It goes back and forth between several groups of people: Nicodemus, Simon and his brother, and Matthew, and just those. Oh, and Mary, of course. And the plot weaves back and forth between all of their simultaneously stories very well. And the first episode actually, it's like an exercise in just building and building and building and laying the foundation to eventually show Jesus in this show about him. And one of the things is establishing like these guys as not the ones with actual authority. And we see that later in the Red Quarter, which I guess is the sketchy part of town. All right, before we go all the way to the Red Quarter and this part with Nicodemus, this is one of those. So you got, I think it's Simon here, yeah. He's like doing street fighting for money, and they're they're like faking stuff so that they can win. Anyway, this is one of those kind of content filler, expanded character moments of this TV show that I don't really like. And so this is just episode 1. So I'm gonna stick with it and keep watching it. But the one concern I had that I mentioned in my review of the pilot episode was that I'm not really here for like the fluffy extra stuff. But so far I've been pleased how they do it. I'm not a huge fan of this, the like street fighting, but it does establish his character. And yeah, so we'll move on. So I'm just like, okay. And there's another thing in the red quarter with Mary. It implies heavily, I mean, it all but smacks you in the face with it, that she's assaulted by Romans, um, and that torments her, memories of that. But it's also, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this show's implying that Mary Magdalene is somewhat of a prostitute. And she's also haunted by her past in that manner, not just her past in being assaulted. And I'm not a big fan of that. Um, I'm also not a scholar, but my understanding was that she was not a prostitute. But I mean, this is many, many, many years ago, and I said I'm not a scholar, but that's just what I thought and what I kind of grew up with. So let me know what you think on that part. Let's go to the red quarter to look at Nicodemus he's essentially doing an exorcism, and it fails. All right, one more thing with these guys before we go to the failed exorcism. So, like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the way they're fluffing out their characters, but the way that they're doing it does successfully portray them both as human and flawed and endearing and people that care about those that they have stewardship over. So I do like that, and it is effective at painting the picture of flawed but good people. All right, without any further ado, let's go to the red quarter. Okay, so here is Nicodemus trying to do an exorcism on Mary Magdalene. And again, this episode does so good at just building and building and building for the need of Jesus and his authority versus the, I guess, assumed authority of people like Nicodemus. And this part especially stands out because he says he's trying to get the devils to come out of her, and he's like, in the names of, and listen to all the people he lists.
The covenant with Abraham, in the names of Jacob, Isaac, Moses,
anyway, he's trying to call the devil out of her in the names of Jacob and Isaac and Moses, and those are great people and prophets. But I think what the episode is trying to say, at least what I'm getting out of it, is that he's doing it in the wrong name, and he who shows up at the end of the episode is the one with the power and the one whose name would work to do this. So this is part of the filler content that I like, is that he's totally rattled by this. He's rattled by the fact that the demon says, like, you have no authority here. And he's rattled by that. And so then in his mind, he's like, well, where is the authority? Okay, so Nicodemus has been basically having a discussion with his wife about questioning in your heart, and what if we don't know everything that there is to know, presumably about God, and what if it's more strange and beautiful than we could imagine? And his wife is very reassuring to the point where she kind of shuts down his questioning. She's like, no, you need to be a public figure of knowledge, not a public figure of doubt. And I love this line, what he says here, because I think it's laying the groundwork for the 30 seconds at the end of the episode where Jesus actually shows up. Listen to this. Talk about the exorcism again.
God himself could have drawn them out.
Only God himself could have drawn them out. And she's kind of getting ready to go. She's like, come on, let's go. She says Nico, which I think is cool. And then he says it again. Very contemplative. Look at him. Yes. That guy's an amazing actor. And I love that, just like I said, it's building the groundwork for him to show up at the end. He has to explain to his fellow teachers why he failed.
Follow possession like this, the space of soul such as hers, sadly, but beyond all human aid.
So again, here he is. He's making excuses for why it didn't work, saying that she's beyond saving, and helping her is beyond all human help. And again, just leading up to it, laying the groundwork that when Savior does show up, he's going to do things that are beyond what people on this earth can do. So here's these guys, Simon, and then here's Matthew. He's like a very quirky. He seems like he's autistic in the show, but they've done a great job with his character. Again, it seems like extra fluff from because there's really not much in the scriptures, so they do have to fluff out their characters. So they're doing a great job of it. It's just not that extra stuff that compels me. It's the more like core stuff that is actually in the book or very close to in the book. So this stuff is good TV, but it's not what I'm here for. But they're doing it well. So this is a cool part, like I was mentioning earlier, how their stories kind of weave together and they pass by each other. Here's Mary. She was just ripped up her scriptures that she had, Isaiah 43:1 that her dad gave her. She ripped it up and she was about to jump off a cliff. She decided not to. And then here's these two brothers who've just been kind of arguing at this little pub, I guess, are kind of leaving very quickly and they're going to pass right by her. I like that the stories kind of bump into each other, so you're following how it's all happening at the same time. But she is now going to go into the bar and basically demand that the guy let her have some very, very potent drink to drink away her sorrows. And then what happens next is amazing. So at this point, Mary's absolutely miserable. Like I said, she's going to drink away her sorrows. Little barkeep guy is very loving of her and he wants to take care of her and doesn't know how else to help her. And they're talking about how the exorcism failed. So they're just like, oh boy. So she's just absolutely miserable. And then a guy harassed her in the bar as well, which again kind of reinforced that they're trying to portray that she has been a prostitute in the past. So that's why she reacts this way when someone else touches her hand. Okay, so the drink gets handed over to her. And then I think this is the best introduction. And I have the deep music is like first time you see him. She's going to immediately leave. So she starts getting like a headache and, presumably because whoever she's possessed with is not liking the presence of this man standing there. But I love that music. It's just like this deep kind of puts his hand on her hand and he's like, that's not for you. And it's like, whoa, this stranger knows something, and we kind of know who it is because we know what the show's about. But he follows her out and she's let's just look at it. She's saying, leave me alone. She's holding her hand up to her head like she has a headache. And then
Mary
calls her by name. And she's been going by Lilith, by the way.
Mary of Magdalene.
He knows exactly who she is. And he goes on to quote Isaiah 43:1.
Thus says the Lord who created you.
And they established it earlier that her dad shared that with her.
Fear not. For I have redeemed you. I have called you by name.
And this is the awesome part.
Am I?
So, with actual power and authority from his father, he lays his hands on her and heals her like no one else in the show could, and like nothing else could, and just hugs her. Aww. Okay, so this is the actual ending shot of the show. So he's in this episode for like 1 minute. And it is so powerful. And the episode did such a good job building up to the I guess the power that he would have when he shows up. And this is a cool way that's not really Well, I guess this part where he does cast things out of her in the actual scriptures. I could find it, but um, this is a powerful scene. The other character building is great. So if that fluffy content has this amazing core content to it, then I'd say we're on track for a great show. I think this first episode is shows seeds of greatness. I'm really looking forward to seeing other episodes. So for the first episode of this show, after the pilot episode, I like it. I'm on board. Like I said, there's a couple of things that I'm not a huge fan of. Um, but I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see how they weave in like the biblical stuff with like these other characters. Again, not as excited for the fluff stuff, more excited for the core, like actual on the page type stuff, or very close to on the page. But yeah, I'm excited. Very powerful scene. And I watched this with my two little girls, and they really liked it. I had to kind of narrate things with them, being like, "Oh, she's not feeling good. Look, he's making her better, right?" Um, so I thought it was good. I thought it was powerful. I definitely felt it in the feels. Very good writing building up to this, and I feel like the first episode does look very low budget, and the Blu-ray is not huge good quality. But I'm excited to see as the show goes on, and I know that they got more and more money for the show. I'm excited to see kind of the production value increase and everything increase as the show kind of finds itself. But as far as the first episode goes, like I'm sold. I'm going to keep watching. So let me know what you think of this show. And if you're interested in seeing me review the other episodes, I'd love to hear that. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.